following show is a paid program.
Hey family, how you doing? We have the legendary, we're doing Legends of R&B today, but Charlie Singleton, formerly of Cameo. Hey, my friend.
How are you, sir? Good to be here, Cam.
Man, I am so excited today. I love Cameo. We love you being, and just being the guitarist and the Phantom Mask we were just talking about. No one has
Thank
seen your
you.
face. They love that.
Here I am.
There you go. There you go. In looking at that, how in the world did you get into music? Just the start of music.
Wow. That's an interesting story. I come from a very culturally rich area there, Louisiana, pretty much where every type of music is in play. When you're growing up, you hear a lot of Cajun stuff, like a lot of pop, a lot of country, a lot of R&B. And, because of where I'm from, which is Scotlandville, Louisiana, which is right outside of Baton Rouge, we were drawn to the R&B scene, at a time where there weren't really any R&B stations. But when James Brown came through and made his statement in the business, we pulled towards that. And it changed every kid's life, even though they weren't musicians. So that's how it all started for me, leaning in that direction. The rhythms, the lyrics, the excitement, and at some point, you said, "That's what I want to do. I want to exert that kind of energy. I want to be seen in that light." That's how it starts.
Absolutely. And then to pick up the guitar, how did that happen?
That kind of happened by default. This is interesting because even though I was into funky music when I was a kid, real young, the thing that really got me into guitar was when the Beatles debuted on the Ed Sullivan Show. It's crazy but true. And I'd never seen anything like that before. Didn't know what it was, where they were from, but the excitement that was around it and the way they introduced it had been building up to that whole thing. And it was just something different that I'd seen before. And immediately after that, I started trying to figure out how to construct guitars from like cigar boxes and broomsticks. Just playing. Yeah. And to the point where as I got older and joined the, middle school marching band and things like that, I started playing horn. But I never really played guitar during that particular time. But I started playing horn, whatever the school had to offer, because we really couldn't afford any instruments on our own.
Right.
So I picked up the French horn. That's how I started. And from that point, I started getting into other instruments and developing my skills on other instruments between middle school and high school. And in high school is when I first got an interest in guitar, tried to build a real one, and ended up injuring myself in the process. And my mom said, "That's it. We're getting you a guitar." And I was like, "Well, I didn't injure myself, so you can get me a guitar." It's part of the process. And she saved up at that particular time because we weren't in the best financial position. So we had these things every time you shop. They would have these books that were called green stamps, S&H green stamps.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
And every time you shop, you would get stamps. And they would give you these catalogs that you can, if you save enough stamps in these booklets, you can trade these books in for gifts, small gifts, coffee pots or whatever. And she saved, which I didn't know, all the stamps that we got for close to a year. And she got my first guitar through S&H green stamps.
Yes. Wow, that brings
and that same guitar right now is on my son's wall. Of course, he's 41 now, and he has that on his wall. And that was long before. So that's how I got into guitar. But and that was for fun. But I ended up advancing on wind and brass instruments. And eventually that's how I got to college, Southern University, on a French horn scholarship,
Mm.
studying classical music, basically,
Wow. Because
which is
it was only
kind
two
of
at the time,
roundabout.
right?
What's that?
It was only two types, right? Was it commercial music and classical music at the time?
Yeah, you really didn't have a lot of options. Once I got into horn, I realized that there weren't a lot of options for French horn players,
Right.
but I wanted to try and become successful at it. So I had this crazy idea of playing in the New Orleans Symphony. Uh, back then, in my mind, it was a reality. Of course, when I got older, I really did think that. I was like, yeah, I'm good enough to do that, or I'm going to
Right.
stick with it long enough,
Mm-hmm.
until I started realizing that these are lifetime positions for these guys. And when somebody finally dies in one of those positions, and that
Yes.
line is long already.
Yes.
So so I just started branching out and doing other things by the time I got to college and got more serious about guitar, and decided to do some gigs and try to make a little money. And
Absolutely. So you were solo before you meeting Cameo. How did you meet them? The group.
this is interesting because I actually started off when I was in college performing with, of course, the Southern University Marching Band,
Mm-hmm.
and where I did quite a few things with them. Then I gravitated to the jazz department and started meeting a different caliber of musicians, where we started doing local gigs and the bands and things like that, traveling and meeting a lot of different people. And during that process is when my instructor at that time, Alvin Batiste, introduced us to a famous jazz fusion drummer, Billy Cobham. But he also introduced us to a lot of people like Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, and so forth. And we were like, blew us away. But Billy was very interesting because he was looking to put together a new band. And out of that, he chose three guys from the university, which was Randy Jackson, who was also one of the judges on American Idol.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but Randy has a history. He's played with a lot of famous people as well, and did a lot of wonderful things in the music industry. And it was Randy Jackson, myself, and an amazing guitarist by the name of Ray Mouton. And through that process, we traveling and recording with Billy Cobham, we met a number of people, who, and so we sort of became well known in that circle of being a certain type of musician first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And and secretly, a lot of R&B musicians or whatever, they listen to that kind of music, when they're trying to become better musicians and so forth. After I finished that tour, I came back to Louisiana and put together my own group and released a single. And through that process of promoting that single and so forth, and performing, a lot of groups would actually, whenever they performed in town, they would actually come out and hear my band. And that happened because one of the top promoters in the city who used to bring major groups to town was actually like a big brother to me,
Mm-hmm.
who really just sort of helped me get in places to play when I was too young to do it. And he broke a lot of rules for me because he knew something then. So whenever he had an opportunity, wherever I was playing, it was in town or whatever, I don't know how he did it, but he convinced these people to come to wherever I was performing, which blew me away. And
Wow.
in some of those places, one night he showed up with Confunction. One night he'll show up with Lakeside.
Mm-hmm.
The next night he'll show up with the Gap Band, LTD, you name it. And he would find these people and he was like, you got to come hear this guy. And that's how, and I got offers basically from a lot of these groups and I turned them all down. And Cameo was the same one.
Mm-hmm.
They came through and we were doing our version of Shake Your Pants,
Mm-hmm.
which was basically nothing like theirs because we put that other element in there, from our background of fusion.
Right.
But we thought that was one of the greatest songs, man. And we would take it and flip it, and people would be on the dance floor, and half the time they'd be in the middle of the song. They didn't know what beat we were on
Mm-hmm.
or what we were doing. Well, I didn't know at that particular time that Cameo was in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea until the show was over. And then they came up and I was like, oh my goodness, man, I'm so sorry if I'd known you guys were out there, we never would have. And I don't want you to think that we were disrespecting you by doing that. And it's like, no, man, that was the craziest stuff we ever heard. We love it. And from that point, we agreed to stay in touch. And next thing you know, a few weeks later, I get this call from Anthony Lockett, who's an amazing guitar player and singer. He wrote Sparkle and Feel Me and all these things, and asked me if I would be interested in joining the band. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, you guys have already got like 12, 13 people. What do you need me for? And everybody just top-notch musicians. So I was like,
Right.
and I passed on it. And I passed on it a second time. And then WG, his name was WG Garrison, who was a promoter, who by that time actually started managing Cameo, which is
Mm.
ironic. Because shortly after that, he says, I think it'll be a good move for you to join this band. He says, so he's like, you owe me this one, basically. I've been busting my butt, trying to get people to hear you and take note. You've been turning everybody down. So I think it would be to your advantage to join this group.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I tell you what, after Larry and I spoke, I agreed to do the album, which is
Mm-hmm.
Knights of the Sound Table. But I had no intentions of joining the band
Right.
until
Right.
I got to New York. And then we all got together. And by the time we worked out the deal, they were well into the album. So I came in and finished up the album with them. And I developed a rapport and a relationship with the guys in the band. And we all went out separate ways. And after that, after they finished the album and the album started hitting, then they asked me if I would be interested in doing a tour. So one thing led to
Led
another.
to another.
And that's
Uh-huh.
how it all started. And next thing you know, I was out on tour with them and I was in the band. And that was the beginning, for
My
me at
God.
least. The group was already established by then.
And this is in the 80s that you're talking about.
This was in the 80s. This was like 1980,
Yes.
when all of this happened.
Uh-huh.
And because we recorded the album in 1980, I think the album was released in 1981. But it was quite an experience, man. But it was a roller coaster, but it was the most wonderful uh, ride in the world, and it's been the greatest experience for me.
That's good. We were talking about the costumes and how you all just came about with those. Let's talk about that because every time Cameo did come out, each person had their own type of costume.
Yeah. Well, that was interesting because it started out, whereas even at the Nights of the Sound Table tour, and keep in mind that was new for me.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning of the Nights of the Sound Table tour, even though each outfit was slightly different, they were sort of like on the same style, but they were just different colors.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I didn't come from that kind of background, and they were all loud, really vibrant neon colors. And I was like,
Right.
hey, I can't do it. No, I'm not going out like that, man. But uh, obviously, you're part of a group, and
Yes.
we joined in, we did our thing, and we became a unit, and that became a staple. But a lot of artists did the exact same thing
Absolutely.
during that time.
Absolutely. And I say that because now people get to see your face because most of the time you do have a mask on. How did
Yeah.
the phantom mask come about?
Well, there's a double meaning behind that because
Uh-huh.
when you're part of a group,
Right.
people tend to remember the group most of the time, but they don't always remember the people in the group
Right.
unless someone does something, either solo or the lead singer or whatever. I was becoming known for the guy who replaced Wayne Cooper, who I admired greatly. He was the falsetto singer who, one of the lead singers who sang "Why Have I Lost You."
Mm-hmm.
So when I came in, I was basically doing all those parts, and even when I came in, the songs that we wrote, I did like all of the highest parts, and I did all of the lowest parts,
Mm-hmm.
which is really interesting because I kind of had that range back then.
Right.
So all the parts, even to the point where I played the album for my mom, and my mom says, "Who is the girl?" And I said, "Mom, that's me." So I knew right then that I needed to do something a little bit different, but not change who I was. But I wanted people to really focus on my overall musicianship as opposed to me just being the guy who replaced Wayne Cooper.
That's awesome.
And that's where it came about. So gradually, we started, as the group progressed, we started developing our own identities within the group, as we moved into the 80s, mid 80s, and we started working with other designers, even Jean Paul Gaultier, where we would get stuff right off the rack that he
see, these
would
are the
make.
pictures right
And
here. These are some of the pictures.
yes,
Yes.
yeah. And if you notice, everybody's got their own character. Everybody's got
Right.
their own
Let's go to the
image
next one.
that they're sort of projecting. And I think the Phantom sort of started
Yeah, this
right
is what
in
people know
that
you
thing
by.
where it started, a new, when we were never afraid to sort of change up on people. And I think that's the thing that we act, because it's not like we didn't care, is that we knew in order to stay out here and be remembered, and to be remembered, we had to morph. We couldn't stay where
Yes.
we were.
Mm-hmm.
And the group was doing that even before I got with them. But it was a big change that happened while I was there, because there was a lot of turmoil going on within the band that was going on before I actually joined the group. And I didn't know that until I joined the band. And I was basically, what have I walked into here?
Mm-hmm.
And there was some guys were thinking about going solo and so forth. And I was just after I agreed to join the band, I realized I was just sort of caught out there trying to figure out, what are we going to do now? So when we downsized, we decided to start from scratch all over again with a completely different style, not forgetting where we came from, still incorporating that stuff in the show. But I became more of a figure in terms of everybody had equal input. And because of the background that I came from, with sort of the rock and the fusion, is when we began to change the style. And it was a collective effort, but that's when we started coming to things like Alligator Woman and syncopated rhythms and stuff like that, that eventually ended up doing, Single Life and Attack Me With Your Love, and eventually got into Candy, things like that, when radio was like, man, there's too much going on in that record. We don't know if people are going to be able to follow it. Right? And we were like, let it roll. We're going to take that chance. Or I became more known for, in the middle of a funk song, throwing in a rock solo.
Okay.
Things like that. Or taking dry rock, like Word Up, where people considered that, it's like, that might not be black enough for black radio. It was like, that's who we are.
Well, let's
That's
do
who we are.
this
That's
real
where
quick. Yeah, let's do this real quick. We're going to show the video. We'll go to break, and we'll come right back. So let's show our video.
Okay.
Then we'll go to break, and then we'll come right back with you. Let's show the video.
Awesome.
Right back to the Cam Hill Show after these messages.
During the season's best sales event, Ron Carter Cadillac delivers 0% APR for 72 months plus $2,500 bonus cash on all 2020 XT4, XT5, and XT6. Or drive 2020 XT4 Luxury Collection only $299 a month. 2020 XT5 Premium Luxury Collection just $369 a month. And first ever 2020 XT6 Premium Luxury Collection just $399 a month. All for 39-month lease with just $1 down.
RonCarterCadillac.com.
I'm attorney Willie Powles. Allow me to express myself with you. If you've been hurt or injured in a car or truck accident, give me a call and we'll get it fixed today.
it comes to protecting yourself and your partners, all the information out there can be overwhelming. Visit our website. We are a free and confidential service striving to help you stay informed and stay notified. We are committed to a healthy Houston.
Have you been injured in an 18-wheeler accident, truck accident, car accident? Was someone texting and ran into the back of you, not paying attention? It doesn't matter what it is. Give me a call, Attorney Willie Powles. We'll fix it today. The number is 281-881-2457. Again, that number is 281-881-2457. We'll fix it today. Call Attorney Willie Powles.
And now back to the Cam Hill Show.
Hey, thanks so much for coming back on today. If you want to call in, you can. We'll take live calls at 346-874-7267. If you want to just congratulate, tell him hi, or just say, what's up to Charlie Singleton, formerly of Cameo. Hey, my friend, we were just talking about you being on stage, about your outfits, and just the things that you guys were wearing. And we just saw a performance of you in action.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Let's go over some things. You were just telling me you've recorded with a lot of people, several artists, one being Shaka Khan. Tell us about that experience.
Well, this is interesting because when I did my first album with Arista, I was with Cameo at the time, but I was still doing my solo career. My first major solo deal was with Arista, and my first single was "Make You Move on Me," and we had scheduled the second single to be "Earth to Mickey," but as the album came out, and in that time frame, apparently Shaka heard the first album and the producers and so forth, and wanted to do the song off there, "Earth to Mickey," which we had scheduled for the second single. And they were very adamant about it, and they kept pushing that. We kept saying, "Wait a minute, we've got this. We're going to do a video on this whole thing." But we decided at the end of the day, through Clive Davis and myself and Ed Eckstein, that, what the heck, let them do it, right? So they brought a couple of producers in, which are also friends of mine, Rayford and Reggie Griffin, and they actually got with me and did an arrangement on that. And it was amazing. And she released it as a single, and it became a Shaka Khan single. Who knew? That was my first introduction.
All we heard was Clive Davis. I didn't hear anything else other than Shaka Khan and Clive Davis.
Oh, Clive Davis. Yeah, Clive. We got some interesting history. But I got there, Ed Eckstein, which is the son of Billy Eckstein, who was A&R, and Ed and I were good friends, and Ed gave me my first major record deal with Arista, and that's where I met the famous Clive Davis.
There you go.
And that was quite an interesting relationship we had.
That's all we heard. We didn't hear nothing else. We heard Clive Davis. Then Charlie Wilson.
Yeah.
My God, the famous Charlie Wilson. Tell us about that story.
I've been knowing Charlie a long time because, we sort of all came up in the trenches, but I didn't the first time I actually met Charlie was before Cameo.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, I don't think he remembers that, but it was before Cameo, but we became, because it was one of those things where another situation where members of the band actually came by to hear me perform, which is interesting. And I was one of those guys, he just agreed, says, "Okay, G, you want us to go out, we'll just go out. We'll check it out," that kind of thing. But I met some of the guys in the band, Robert and Ronnie, his other two brothers. But in the 80s is when we started establishing, a relationship. Back when we were all out on the road periodically doing shows together, whether it was Gab Band, Lakeside, Confunction, SOS. All these guys, over a period of time, when you're out on the road, you kind of get to know each other on a certain level. That's how it started. And so Charlie and our relationship started way back then. And as time went on, we became close. And he's one of my, that's my boy now. So, and we've done some work together, and I've produced some stuff for him as well. But he's an amazing artist, and to see all the things that he's gone through and where he is right now
Right.
is a true testament.
It really
And
is,
he
because he's
preaches
still
that every
there.
night on stage.
Yeah, he's
Still
still
there,
out there.
bigger than ever,
Yes, absolutely.
inspiring.
Definitely. The Whispers, they came on. I've interviewed them before, and they're the nicest guys, I tell you.
Yes, they are.
But you were
Yes,
telling us
they
about
are.
Heaven, about the song.
Yes, a friend of mine, Kenny Burke, bass player and producer, actually wrote a couple of songs for them, years ago. And Kenny already had a sort of
Okay.
a relationship with him, and he ended up.
All righty. Looks like we just got to switch it around or something. Looked like it didn't switch or something with Charlie. Let's go ahead. So anyway, he was telling us about the Whispers. There's a song that they put out that he had put together, and it's called Heaven. So let's just see. Do we have him back? Okay. Okay. Let's just go ahead. Anyway, he had a solo career. Okay, let's see him again. Charlie, there you go. Yeah. Hey, you back?
All right.
We were
I'm
talking
back.
about, this technology is something, man. You can't even touch it. It's something. So you were talking about Heaven. You were talking about the Whispers, and you were talking about, how
Yes.
you guys, came together.
Oh, yes. I've been knowing Kenny for years, and we'd done some writing before, and with musicians, we always team up and just kind of do things together simply because that's what we do. With no intentions of where to send stuff or whatever, we'll just come up with what we think is a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
But this particular one, Kenny already had an established relationship with Whispers, and he asked if I would be interested in working with him on a couple of songs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we started. So we got together, tried to figure out, okay, what do we do? I mean, what kind of thing are they looking for?
Right.
And we came up with a couple of tracks and shot it to them, and they were like, oh, absolutely, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it started. So they ended up using both tracks on the album, and and amazing guys, by the way. And the weird thing is that they had been doing that song for years, and even live.
Yes.
And we've done several shows with Cameo with them off and on, and I had met the guys, and they had no idea who I was, that I was the guy who actually wrote those songs.
Right.
Because I would never introduce myself as that.
Right.
And then when they finally realized, they completely just freaked out. Said, "Man, we've been looking at you all these years, and you never even once mentioned that you wrote these two songs."
Right.
And it was like, "That's foul." But it's
And
great guys, though.
Yeah, the other person we were talking about is Kenny Lattimore.
Oh, yes, an amazing talent, amazing young man. Kenny was actually, when I was it Epic or Arista? I'm trying to figure out which one. Either way, he was on the label, but he was part of a group called Masquerade.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Mannequin.
Uh-huh. Mannequin. I'm sorry. Because I produced another group called Masquerade, and I used to get them both confused. I got my M's all mixed up. That's what it is.
No problem.
Yeah, and they asked me if I would be willing to do one side of the album. And I said, sure. After I said, well, let's hear the group. And after I heard them, I was like, wow, these guys are amazing. Not only were they amazing musicians, but I heard the lead singer, and I was like, who is this guy?
Right.
And he was a younger guy, and it just, so when I finally got a chance to meet him, he was really shy and reserved and really timid at first. But whenever he stood behind a microphone, he would just transform into something. I was like, wait a minute, who is that?
Right.
So, and we went into the studio and I worked with those guys. But what I didn't know at the time, that they had asked Charlie Wilson to do the flip side of the album.
Mm.
So it was interesting. So I ended up doing one side of the album. Charlie Wilson actually did the other side of the album. But we were so impressed with Kenny. And it's not like we were trying to break up the group. We just knew eventually at some point.
Yes.
That, oh, this kid, he's going to be somebody. He's going to branch out his own. He's going to really make a name for himself. But we kind of encouraged that and stayed in touch. At least I did through the year. And he proved us both right. He didn't let us down.
He was
He's amazing.
he is amazing. He definitely is. As you go through, you've gone through all of the music that you've done, everything you've seen. What have you learned along the way?
Absolutely no.
Nothing.
I realized the whole time that I just overthunk everything. You know, it's like sometimes you can put things in your head and
Yeah.
you can perceive things completely different than what
Mm-hmm.
they really are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that to say this, the things that I should have been focusing on all those years was just remaining who I am
Mm-hmm.
and expressing myself in a way that I saw fit. And if people like it, they like it. But never lose myself in the moment to the point where I start performing or writing for people.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be happy with it first.
Wow.
And if they like it, fine. If they don't, fine. That's where I am in my life now. Now, I'm not saying that that process didn't work collectively, but if I had to do it all over again, I would certainly do it differently. I have learned a lot. I don't want to think that I haven't learned anything, but I've learned not to learn so much.
That's a good one. That's a very good one. I like that a lot. You were talking earlier, and you were talking about just educating people on, as you were saying about the song, for instance, that Shaka Khan they really wanted, that management wanted that song. And you releasing that song, giving it to someone else that maybe they wanted it and she took it to another level, in other words, but you still received monetary value. Many people don't
Yes.
want to, give it away like that, and then the monetary value and see the value in that. But the great part about it, you did.
Yes. It was a little concerning at first
Yeah.
because that was the first time I'd been in that position.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't really familiar with how it worked, even though I'd been in the business for a while, but I'd never been in a position where someone actually wanted to record something that I'd already recorded.
Right.
Now, it's usually something, can you write a situation where can you write something for us?
Right.
But never it's like, okay, the song is already out. We want to redo it. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
why?
Yeah.
But it worked out great. But the thing is, back to what you're saying, even though I was with a record company at the time who sort of walked me through it,
Mm-hmm.
and they made the process easier for me. Basically, what they had to do, even though they agreed to do the song and contacted the record company directly, they still had to go through the process, through the system of doing paperwork. So it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't enough just to say, I'm Shaka, your artist is on this label, and I want to do one of his songs. Can
Right.
we? And somebody says, yeah, go right ahead. No, they had to get a license. They had to do the paperwork. They had to make sure that everything is in place in terms of publishing, royalties, and so forth. That when that record started to get played on the radio and sales, that whatever portions that are allotted to different people, whoever involved, goes directly to those people. Because
Mm-hmm.
you wrote the art, I mean, you wrote these songs, so clearly you should get paid for it. And of course, she received something from it as well. I didn't understand that process. So what happens in this case, any artist who writes songs, so whether it's a song that's going to be re-recorded or a song, in the instance where a song is re-recorded, they have to go through a process, and normally they have to go through the what's called the Harry Fox Agency, which is in New York. They call these people uh, and let them know exactly what songs they're trying to do. And that agency you would sort of like initiate a license. They have to
Mm-hmm.
sign a license agreement with this particular agency. Obviously, through this agency, the artist is contacted, and an arrangement is made through the artist, through the agency, through the person who's actually, or the artist, or entertainers who actually want to re-record the material. Because in some cases, uh, certain artists with certain songs will not give you permission to record this stuff.
Right.
And what you don't want to do is go out, which is what a lot of mistakes that a lot of musicians have made. They like a song that says, okay, we're just going to do it. And then we're going to release it.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever comes back is going to be fine. And then they ended up getting sued for more money than the song actually made.
Right. And that's why I wanted to say
And
that.
defeats,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to take the right steps. And sometimes you can get lucky and stay under the radar if you can flip a song a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
and there's certain things that done that way, the right way and the wrong way. But if you don't go through the proper procedure, it could really come back to haunt you.
Right.
So if there's a song that you hear that you love that you want to do re-record or do a remake, you have to go through the right process and get a license through the Harry Fox agency. And in turn, they will contact the artist. And then between the three of you and so forth, you fill out all the paperwork and figure out the best way to do it
And
with
I'm
splits
so
and so forth. Because if you're adding something, there's so many different levels of that because you can want to redo something. But if you change something within the song,
mm-hmm.
add things within the song, then technically, on top of the original writers, you become an additional writer.
Mm.
So even though you can take a classic that's already in place, if you redo that classic in a slightly different way and add certain things, that means you technically become a writer with it. Now you're not the original writer, but it means that the original writers have to still get credit, and
Right.
they still have to get paid for their work.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know. I'm glad you said that because a lot of times, us not knowing is in itself a hindrance. You know what I mean?
Yes,
And it comes back to
I was
bite
one
us.
of those people.
Yeah.
Oh
But
yes, I would take lines from other songs, incorporate them in songs we were writing. Had no idea
right, right,
until you
right.
get to the point where people listening to this say, you can't do that. I say, well, why? It's just a guitar line. No,
Mm-hmm.
you can't.
Mm-hmm. 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 But many times, and what I loved about you guys, and we were talking about your music being so timeless, even now, you see a lot of the old songs being re-recorded by younger artists. They love the music. So the music is still out there. It's just being re-recorded in their own way and all get the money. Uh, Lenny
Right.
Williams was one of them. He said, they still get checks on different things,
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's the beautiful thing about it. And see, that's how the industry has changed a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, when we the great, there's so many different levels of that. When we were coming up,
Uh-huh.
especially during the '80s, record companies actually signed artists based on their potential.
Right.
It didn't matter if they already had a hit record out.
Mm-hmm.
They would do album and set a record deal, or you put a record deal in place with a certain amount of albums. And of course, they wanted a hit. They wanted a number one record. But your success or your relationship with the company wasn't based on that. If they
Mm-hmm.
believed in you, it could have been the third, fourth album before you really got a number one record. But you still sold records in the process, and they believed in you as an artist. That's why they
Mm-hmm.
signed you. Because they needed certain artists in certain genres and certain spots that they had to fill. And if you were one of the lucky ones to do that, and it was something that you really, you cherished, and you put your heart and soul into it. Today's a little bit different. A lot of times when you talk about 360 deals and artists walk in looking for deals, a lot of times these companies want to know how many records have you sold before they even sign you.
Right.
Well, have you released it? How many records have you sold? Have you sold 10, 15,000 or 20, 50,000 on your own? And that'll determine whether or not they actually give you a deal. So it's very rare that they will see an artist and say, we're going to develop this person and we're going to take them under our wing
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to make them famous. Well, back then we had marketing departments, R&B, artists and repertoire, where they actually develop artists.
Mm-hmm.
They would work with you in terms of how to express yourself in public, how to dance, how to project on stage,
Right.
a certain look. That's what they did with a lot of us, and they approved your look. They
Mm-hmm.
approved your music. Certain things could not be played on radio. They had to sort of meet certain standards. Kind of like today, everything goes.
Right.
Uh, and and a lot of these artists have some semblance of success before they actually go with record companies. And some artists never sign record deals because it would be they would be at a less of an advantage sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
A classic example: artists like Chance the Rapper. He's like, why should I sign a record deal? I'll just do a distribution deal. Why would I give up 100% of something
Mm-hmm.
to sign a deal to only get 30%?
Right. Right. Right.
Makes no sense. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're selling those kind of records on your own, uh, unless they put some crazy money on the table, there's no incentive for you to just sign over your life and all of your control to a company that's really just sort of making money off of you, but may not do as well for you as you can do for yourself.
Absolutely.
So in that process, the material is compromised. The standard, I believe, even though there are a lot of good material out, but this is just my personal opinion, the standard has been lowered. And people have sort of become numb to the fact that, okay, this is what we got. All right, let's just work with that. You know, in the marketplace, you know, it's like listeners. We've become so used to hearing new music to the point where we may like it, but we're not affected by it in the same way as we are with classic material. Which is why when an old school song comes up, the room lights up. And that's the effect that it has on people. Like, you know, like we were talking about earlier, you better not leave that stage without playing Candy, or we got some, or you're going to have a riot.
Absolutely.
You're going to have some problems, you know. But that's the difference where as we can go out and folks may not be as eager to buy all of your new stuff, but they still hold on to the old stuff and they will still come out to see you. Whereas the new artists, they may buy some of the new stuff, but may not come out to see you in numbers.
Right.
We can do a concert and
Charlie. Charlie, let's do this.
Sure.
We're going to take a break and we're going to be right back. I want you to hold that thought because we want to hear it.
All right.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back to the Cam Hill Show after these messages.
During the season's best sales event, Ron Carter Cadillac delivers 0% APR for 72 months plus $2,500 bonus cash on all 2020 XT4, XT5, and XT6. Or drive 2020 XT4 Luxury Collection only $299 a month. 2020 XT5 Premium Luxury Collection just $369 a month. And first ever 2020 XT6 Premium Luxury Collection just $399 a month. All for 39-month lease with just $1 down.
RonCarterCadillac.com.
I'm attorney Willie Powles. Allow me to express myself with you. If you've been hurt or injured in a car or truck accident, give me a call and we'll get it fixed today.
When it comes to protecting yourself and your partners, all the information out there can be overwhelming. Visit our website. We are a free and confidential service striving to help you stay informed and stay notified. We are committed to a healthy Houston.
Have you been injured in an 18-wheeler accident, truck accident, car accident? Was someone texting and ran into the back of you, not paying attention? It doesn't matter what it is. Give me a call, attorney Willie Powles. We'll fix it today. The number is 281-881-2457. Again, that number is 281-881-2457. We'll fix it today. Call attorney Willie Powles.
And now back to the Cam Hill Show.
Hey, family, we're back with Charlie Singleton. Charlie, let's just pick up right where we left off. You had a great thought there, and you were just telling us about it.
We were talking about just in general record companies and how music is perceived right now, and what's out there as opposed to what was out there. There's room for everything.
It is.
There's room for everything, but I realize as I'm getting older that my thought process is sort of falling in line with a lot of people that I used to say, oh, that old guy, he don't know what he's talking about. Now I'm one of those old guys who don't know what he's talking about.
Right, absolutely. I understand that. When you're
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, when you're looking at the music and the business itself, and we talked a lot about it, and I so thank you for it because you've really helped a lot of people. I was just looking at some of the comments and a lot of things. First of all, they want to say hello to you and shout you out and thank you for the opportunity. The other thing they they love about the fact about just understanding 10% is music. The other is business. And the part about the business is many times artists, new artists, as well as artists that have been out there, have lost a lot, monetary value and monetary money out there
Yes.
because of that, not having the representation or not even just understanding the business.
Yes. So true. I was one of them at some point, before I figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I've gotten into a lot of bad contracts that were hard to get out of,
Mm-hmm.
and some that you thought that you'd grown out of, and people come back on you at you when you sort of develop a name. All of a sudden, somebody that you had some small deal with five
Right.
years, 6 years before that comes out of the woodworks and want to get paid.
Right.
You know, and it just happened, and you just have to deal with it as you go along. But we really do have to be careful about what we sign,
Right.
because things can come back to haunt you. Uh, Not so much the past things, but a lot of people knowingly go into things
Mm-hmm.
that they shouldn't sign, and they know it as they're signing it. If something sounds too good to be true, uh, it usually is.
Right.
And
Right.
the thing is, people will promise you the moon and the stars just to get your name, get just signature on paper. But
Mm.
obviously, they're doing that because there's something there that they see that they can benefit from.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're in the moment enough at that particular time to realize that, then we know we have the power to walk away and wait and hold on to something better. Now that's easy. I hold on until something better comes along. That's easier said than done,
Yeah.
because if you up and coming artist, you're hustling, you're trying to make a name for yourself. A lot of times we just unknowingly sign things that we shouldn't.
Right.
But most of us have been in that position. We have to really learn the business. So what you said is exactly true. Because anybody can perform. You
Mm-hmm.
can develop your skills and do certain things on a certain level. But if you want to be in the business, you're going to have to educate yourself. There are enough things out here that enough artists out here with stories that, and they're not afraid to tell the stories that they should listen to, new artists. But
Right.
you should also listen to some of these old school artists and their experiences. And they're two completely different experiences,
They are,
you
especially
know,
now.
especially now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you said that about that, as you just things about you listened to, did along the way, or you learned along the way, and then just advice to not just young people, but people that still have that dream of still going into the music business. I saw also what I loved about you. You've done film and television as far as music.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough because of my background,
Right.
and not necessarily extended, but the
Mm-hmm.
fact is I've had opportunities to do a lot of those things and taken advantage of it, uh, because of my background in with instruments and
Mm-hmm.
being able to arrange instruments and sort of being able to adapt or adopt different styles of music. Uh, but it took me a while to really prove that, because a lot of people look at your cameo background, and you're not the first person they think about when they want a soundtrack
Right.
or if they want a string arrangement. You are not the first person that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a process by which you have to do things outside of sometimes of what you're actually doing for a living, to let people know that you're capable of doing that, or you're bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
So once people started hearing different things within my music, or or different things on different styles that I've done for other people, or things that you send to them to give them a range of what you do, then at some point they say, well, look, well, just give them a shot on this. And
Right.
before you know it, one thing leads to another, and it turns into a situation where, man, we didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
We had no idea. I'm sorry it took us so long, but we didn't know. So it's important that if you feel that you're bigger than that, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, but you have to think about, what do you want to become? What do you want to be known for? And how far do you want to go? And sort of feel free to branch outside of that. And it's only going to enhance and make what you do even better, because you can insert some things in there that people, other people may not think of. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
I do sometimes in my music. Even now, I sort of insert things to make it more sound, even though it might be commercial, but still sort of soundtrack oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the quest behind the upcoming single that I want to release, which is one called Skin. It has that flavor where it delivers a message, but it's also drama oriented in the back where you've got all these scenes going on to sort of give you the feel that this could be a soundtrack.
Wow.
So, so there are
Mm-hmm.
different ways to do things to keep it interesting for yourself and to sort of elevate people to let them know that we have a choice. We don't necessarily just have to listen to. I'm not going to call any names to this or this artist or whatever. That I don't want to do that. I don't want people knocking on my door. I'm not
Right,
crazy.
absolutely.
But we just have to, as old school artists, it's okay to delve into new stuff because you try and maintain a certain presence and stay out here,
Right.
but never lose touch with who you are and where you came from.
I'm glad you said that because of the fact and just the most people think because COVID has happened, that there's nothing going on with music. Of course, a lot of the venues have closed. A lot of local artists can't be in the
Yes,
restaurants or whatever, but it's still so much out there, especially if you're going virtual or so. You're actually able to touch a lot more people than you would have before, to be honest.
yes, it's true. And like you said, this is a time sort of for me. I know it's been a time of reflection.
Yes.
I've been forced to sit down and
Mm-hmm.
rethink this,
Mm-hmm.
forced to. Uh, and this is for the first time in my life since I started this journey. I've been forced
Right.
to sit down and rethink everything. Things that I completely, not necessarily overlooked, but you didn't have time to really sort of, because you're so busy trying to make a living,
Right.
trying to keep your name out there and so forth. Uh, so this gives me an opportunity to really focus on new music, which I've
Mm-hmm.
done. So I actually have three solo projects I'm planning on releasing all next year. And the first one I'm going to drop uh, January 1st,
Wow,
and
that's
that's the
good.
one it's called Skin. I don't know if Sandy sent you that one,
No, she
but
didn't. Yeah, yeah.
so that's where we are right now. It's like we're moving forward. We're going to keep
Uh-huh.
doing what we're doing, and hopefully we can touch people in the process. But I really appreciate you, man, and
Yeah.
for keeping it real, for having a forum for guys like me to come on and tell our story. Thank you so much.
Well, I tell you what, we appreciate you so much for even staying out here, for even opening the doors for all other artists behind you. Look at the genre, look at the group, look at how many people that came behind, even now, all from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s, because of you, Cameo, and the others, Lakeside, SOS Band, all of the others, to open those doors. Because had it not been for you guys, they couldn't have walked through.
Oh, thank you, and that's because of the people who were before us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What would you like to leave with the viewers? What last words would you like to tell them?
First of all, I want to just say thank you for all the years of support and the fact that you guys have been with me and all of the entities that I've been associated for so many years, and you've never wavered. We're here because of you, and we really appreciate that. I never take that for granted. And the other thing to all the artists out there, just keep it real. Be yourself. Don't feel the need to be anyone else other than who you are. Uh, make your own footprint and just go wherever it leads you. And if it's meant for you, you'll have it.
That's good. Tell us how to get Skin. It's going to drop on January 1st, you said?
Skin is going to drop January 1st. It's going to be available on all forums.
Yes.
So wherever you normally do downloads, but here's the deal. It's actually going to be a free download because I'm introducing, obviously I feel I need to give something out
Yeah.
to my folks. But this is a message that's really relevant in terms of what's going on out here today, in terms of
Right.
where we are in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
all this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a message to people in general, but a big message to our people.
Absolutely.
So, but that's dropping January 1st, and it's just going to be the first single of three projects that I'm scheduled to release during the course of the year.
I appreciate you so much, my friend. Thank you. you for the opportunity. Thank you for everything you're doing. God bless you and God keep you.
Thank you, Cam. I appreciate you. And thank you so much.
Take care, buddy. On tomorrow, we will have Fred Alexander. He will be closing out for He'll be at Lakeside. He was formerly of Lakeside. Legends of R&B, 12:30 to 1:30 Central Standard Time. Bye.